The wedding hall shimmered with champagne gold light, wrapping the day in a dreamlike glow. 62-year-old Eleanor Thorne clutched her daughter's hand, fighting back tears of pride, and an aching loneliness her smile couldn't hide. That day should have been perfect. But Eleanor didn't know yet, by the time the champagne glasses clinked, the very bloodline she came from would be mocked before everyone, and her heart would shatter. In a room full of strangers, laughter would slice her dignity apart, until a moment she never expected changed everything. Eleanor's worn hands, marked by years of arranging flowers at the local shop, smoothed her modest dress, the nicest she owned. The grandeur of this place made her feel like a stranger in an unfamiliar world, so different from the humble surroundings where she had raised Madeline alone after Howard's death 15 years ago. "Mom, are you nervous?" Madeline asked with a gentle smile, radiant in her pure white gown. Eleanor squeezed her daughter's hand. "As long as you're happy, that's all that matters to me," she whispered, her voice catching slightly. What she didn't say was how proud she was that her daughter had created a life beyond their small town, beyond their modest means. The ceremony proceeded solemnly beneath an arch of white roses. Eleanor sat alone in the front row, painfully aware of the empty space beside her where Howard should have been. As Madeline and Philip exchanged vows, Eleanor clutched the small locket around her neck, the one containing a pressed flower from Howard's last garden. The reception began in a grand ballroom. The room was filled with notable figures from high society, their refined conversations flowing through the air in a language of privilege Eleanor had never learned to speak. "Now, we'd like to invite the groom's parents to share a few words," announced the host. The room fell silent as Broderick and Victoria Blackwood rose to their feet. Broderick, a well-known local real estate magnate, commanded respect in his custom-made navy suit. Victoria wore an elegant purple designer dress with a family heirloom pearl necklace. As a director of a cultural foundation, she stood gracefully beside her husband, her perfectly coiffed silver hair framing a face maintained by the finest skincare. Broderick took the microphone first. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us today." His deep voice carried an unmistakable air of authority. "I'm truly delighted to celebrate my son Philip's marriage in this way. The Blackwood family has contributed to this region's development for 3 generations, and Philip has been raised with that same pride and responsibility." Eleanor noticed how several guests nodded appreciatively. Broderick's words weren't just a wedding speech, they were a reminder of status, of legacy. And today, he has chosen his life partner. "Madeline, welcome to our family." Though his words were polite, there was an unmistakable condescension in his tone, the slight emphasis on a chosen suggesting surprise at his son's selection. Next, Victoria took the microphone, her diamond bracelet catching the light as she moved. Her smile was practiced and perfect, never quite reaching her eyes. "It's an honor to celebrate the beginning of Philip and beautiful Madeline's journey with such wonderful people." Her gaze briefly turned toward Eleanor. Eleanor instinctively shrank back at what she saw in those eyes: calculation, judgment, and something worse, pity. "Our family prides itself on being accepting of people from all backgrounds," Victoria continued, her emphasis making the supposed compliment sound like its opposite. A small tension rippled through the room. "But honestly," Victoria paused, lifting her glass. "A Gardner's family was something I truly never imagined." In that moment, an icy silence spread through the room. Eleanor felt every eye turn toward her, each gaze of physical weight pressing against her chest, making it difficult to breathe. Eleanor's heart hammered against her ribs as heat crawled up her neck to her cheeks. Her family had worked as gardeners in this region for generations, humble work, yes, but work they had always taken pride in. Howard had known the name of every plant and he could coax life from the most barren soil. Madeline's father was, "Oh yes, he's passed away, hasn't he?" Victoria's voice dripped with false sympathy. "I understand he wasn't just a simple gardener, but a dedicated man. After all, someone has to do that dirt work, don't they?" Victoria's tone invited laughter, and small chuckles spread through the room. Eleanor gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. Each laugh felt like a knife sliding between her ribs. Howard is the gentlest, wisest man she'd ever known. He'd worked with a poet's soul, teaching their daughter to see the miracle in a sprouting seed. Then Broderick took the microphone again. With a warm smile that didn't match the calculating look in his eyes, he added, "Well, having a family skilled at garden maintenance might come in handy for our summer estate's lawns. Ha ha. We have several acres that would keep them busy throughout the season." Loud laughter erupted around the room. The high society guests directed curious glances at Eleanor, their expressions mixing curiosity with subtle pity. Some had the decency to look uncomfortable, but not a single person stood up to object. Broderick continued, joking aside, "Madeline, we welcome you to our family." The slight pause before welcome hung in the air, undermining the sentiment entirely. Though his words were courteous, his eyes held a cold gleam that said more clearly than words, "You may have married into our family, but you don't truly belong here." Eleanor's face burned as if slapped, her vision blurring with tears she refused to shed. Camera flashes captured the moment relentlessly, immortalizing her humiliation. Broderick and Victoria's words, the room's laughter, the stares, everything burned into Eleanor's mind as a cruel tableau she would never forget. Guests eagerly positioned their smartphones, not wanting to miss this amusing moment for their social media posts. Eleanor could already imagine the captions, "Drama at the Blackwood wedding." Her shame wouldn't just live in this room, it would be broadcast to thousands. But don't worry, Victoria concluded with a patronizing smile. "Our son has a very generous heart. He's promised to make Madeline happy, despite everything." Applause rose from the audience. Eleanor endured silently, desperately maintaining her smile through sheer force of will. For her daughter's happiness. For this special day. But inside, she trembled with intense anger and humiliation that threatened to burst from her chest. From the head table, Eleanor caught glimpses of Madeline's confused expression and Philip's apologetic eyes. But no one, not her daughter, not her new son-in-law, not a single guest, stood up. No one said anything to challenge the cruel remarks. Their silence was a verdict. The Blackwoods' behavior was acceptable because of who they were. Eleanor slowly took a sip of water, hiding her shaking hands beneath the table. "Howard, if only you were here. You would have known what to say, how to stand tall against people like these." As the reception neared its end, several older guests approached Eleanor's table. "You're Madeline's mother, aren't you?" one woman said kindly. "That's a lovely dress." Eleanor forced a smile, knowing the compliment was more pity than truth. "Thank you. But..." The woman lowered her voice. "Those comments were terrible. Victoria can be so difficult." Another woman joined in. "Don't worry about it. She's condescending to everyone." Their attempts at comfort only twisted the knife deeper. These women weren't offering real sympathy, they were enjoying the gossip, another chapter in Victoria Blackwood's book of social cruelties. It wasn't until she was alone in the car ride home, the lights of the Grand Hotel fading behind her, that she finally allowed her tears to flow freely. They came in silent, heaving sobs that shook her entire body, releasing years of pride and 15 years of solitary strength all at once. "I'm sorry, Howard," she whispered to the darkness. "I let them shame what we built together. I let them laugh at you." The worst part wasn't the humiliation, it was feeling that she had failed to honor Howard's memory, failed to defend the dignity of the life they had shared. As the car carried her away from her daughter's new world back toward her small, empty house, Eleanor felt something hardening inside her. Beneath the tears, beneath the shame, a small ember began to glow, not just anger, but determination. They might have wealth and social power, but they didn't know what she knew, that flowers, no matter how trampled, find ways to bloom again. A week crawled by since the wedding. The calls from her daughter, Maddie, which used to brighten Eleanor's small house twice a week, had dwindled to sparse text messages. "Mom, are you okay? Sorry, I'm so busy." Eleanor would type back, "I'm fine, don't worry," her fingers betraying the ache in her heart. The truth was far from fine, her heart felt shattered, but she couldn't bear to burden her daughter. Working her shifts at the town's flower shop became a quiet ordeal. Eleanor felt the subtle shift in people's gazes. News traveled fast in their small town, and the incident at the wedding had become common knowledge. A video clip filmed by a guest titled, "High Society vs. Gardener Mom," had gone viral online, racking up tens of thousands of views. Hashtags like #classism and #arrogance of the rich trended alongside snide comments. "Eleanor, I saw that wedding video," a regular customer whispered, leaning over the counter. Eleanor couldn't decipher if the look in her eyes was pity or mere curiosity. Either way, it stung. "I'm all right," she managed to say, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Later that evening, alone in her quiet house, Eleanor found the video online. Over 50,000 views. More than 1,000 comments. "Those rich folks are horrible. Feel so bad for the bride's mother. Wouldn't want in-laws like that. The arrogance of old money is sickening." To be pitied by strangers felt like salt rubbing her wounds. She quietly closed her laptop, the screen reflecting her weary face. Returning home became a ritual of speaking to the framed photo of her late husband placed in the garden shed. "Howard, if only you were here." Howard had passed away 15 years ago. He was a gentle gardener, the man who had brought beauty to countless gardens in their town. He cherished the earth, loved his plants, and found joy in simple things. "Pride is something no one can take from you, Eleanor. Tend the soil, and your spirit will grow too." His words, spoken years ago, echoed in her mind, a comforting balm on her raw emotions. With a heavy sigh, Eleanor rose and walked towards a neglected corner of her garden. Weeds choked the life out of what was once a beautiful patch, a space Howard had particularly loved. She picked up a small trowel, the cool metal familiar in her hand, and slowly began to turn the soil. Her strength wasn't what it used to be. Her fingers ached, her joints protested, and her back complained with every movement. Yet, she pulled weed after weed, dug into the resistant earth, searching for something lost within herself. "It's been a while," she murmured, inhaling the earthy scent, a fragrance tied to happier times. After Howard's sudden death, Eleanor had abandoned serious gardening. It felt meaningless without him. But now, the feel of the soil, cool and forgiving, stirred something deep inside her. A flicker of defiance, perhaps. Day by day, she worked, reclaiming the small patch bit by bit. She noticed the neighbors peering through their curtains, their curiosity palpable. But Eleanor ignored them, focusing on the rhythm of her work. "Eleanor, saw you working in the garden lately," someone called out at the supermarket checkout. "Yes, just a little," she replied calmly. "About that wedding." Eleanor offered a quiet smile. "That's in the past. My garden is what matters now." Her words sounded stronger than she felt. The nights were still long, often punctuated by silent tears. Loneliness gnawed at her, a deep ache for Maddie. Worse still was the gnawing fear, was her very existence, her humble background, becoming an obstacle in her daughter's new life? "Was it wrong for me to be a gardener and a mother?" she whispered into the darkness of her room. The days spent in the garden became days spent confronting herself. Her bruised self-esteem, her trampled pride, she felt as though she were burying them in the earth, hoping, like seeds, they might transform into something new, something resilient. In one corner stood a rose bush Howard had cherished. Neglected for years, it looked almost dead, its branches dry and brittle. Eleanor knelt before it, her movements careful, and began to prune away the dead wood. "You're not dead," she whispered to the dormant plant. "You're just sleeping. I'll wake you up." Patiently, day after day, she tended to the rose bush. cutting back the dry twigs, loosening the soil around its roots, waiting for a sign of new life. It wasn't just gardening, it felt like a sacred ritual for her own soul's revival. Meanwhile, in a sleek high-rise apartment miles away, Maddie wrestled with her own turmoil. Outwardly, she lived the life of a happy newlywed, but her heart was heavy with unspoken guilt. "I should call Mom," Maddie murmured in bed one night. "Did you say something?" Philip asked from beside her. "No, nothing." Maddie stared at her phone. The urge to call her mother warred with her reluctance to upset her new in-laws, Broderick and Victoria. The memory of the wedding, her silence in the face of their cruelty, left a deep scar. Guilt washed over her, she hadn't protected her mother. "Philip, what do you really think about that day?" she finally asked in a small voice. Philip answered quietly, his gaze full of sympathy. "What my parents said was terrible, Maddie. I want to apologize to your mother properly. But my father, he's under a lot of pressure right now. A big project." Philip hesitated. "And my mother is walking on eggshells around him. Maybe we should give it a little time?" Maddie nodded silently, feeling trapped. She stood precariously between the mother she adored and the family she had married into. She loved them both, wanted to hurt neither. "We just need a little time," she told herself, trying to justify her silence. It's a difficult time for Philip's family. But she didn't realize that her decision, born of fear and a desire for peace, was widening the distance between her and Eleanor. One evening, Philip came home to find Maddie quietly weeping. "What's wrong?" he asked, instantly concerned. "Mom's garden." Maddie showed him her phone screen. A friend from her hometown had sent a picture, Eleanor, alone, working diligently in her yard. She mostly gave up on the garden after Dad died. But now she started again. Philip studied the photo, seeing the quiet determination in Eleanor's posture. "Your mother is a strong woman, Maddie." "I know." Maddie nodded, fresh tears welling up. "But I'm weak. I couldn't defend her." Philip pulled her close, holding her tightly. "Let's give her some space for now. And then, we'll find our own way to help her." He felt a pang of shame for his own parents' behavior and his inability to stand up to them more forcefully. As the first whispers of autumn wind rustled the leaves, Eleanor's garden was slowly reclaiming its former shape. It wasn't perfect yet, but the plants Howard had loved were stirring, breathing again under her care. This wasn't just the revival of a garden, it was the quiet resurrection of Eleanor's own spirit. Each day spent with her hands in the soil was a day spent reconnecting with herself. "I am more than just a gardener's wife. I have my own life," she sometimes whispered aloud, testing the unfamiliar weight of the words. One crisp afternoon, a young man delivering the mail stopped by her fence. "Wow, Mrs. Thorne, this garden is amazing," he said, his voice bright with genuine admiration. He was unfamiliar. Eleanor tilted her head slightly. He offered a friendly, slightly shy smile. "I'm Bennett Wells. Just moved to town recently, started working the mail route. But actually..." He hesitated, a faint blush rising on his cheeks. "What I really want to do is horticulture. I majored in it at the state university, but I don't have much hands-on experience yet." His eyes shone with pure, unadulterated admiration for the work unfolding before him. An involuntary smile touched Eleanor's lips. "Oh, this garden still has a long way to go. It used to be much more beautiful," she demurred. "But I think it's incredible." Bennett insisted, his gaze sweeping over the beds. "Especially the way you've placed those roses, and the structure of the herb garden. There's an intuition here you just can't learn from textbooks." Eleanor felt a jolt of surprise. No one had looked at her garden with such a discerning, appreciative eye in years. "Actually..." Bennett pulled out his smartphone. "Would you mind if I take some photos of your garden?" For a class project? Only if it's okay, of course. Eleanor felt a flicker of hesitation, the memory of unwanted attention still fresh, but the young man's sincerity was disarming. She gave him permission. A few days later, Bennett appeared at her door, practically vibrating with excitement. Mrs. Thorne. You have to see this. He held up his phone. There were the pictures of her garden, shared on a social media platform, garnering hundreds of likes and comments. My professor loved the photos. He shared them with an online horticulture group, and now everyone's asking who designed this garden. Eleanor stared at the screen, disbelief warring with a strange warmth spreading through her chest. Her small, private act of healing was being seen, acknowledged by strangers. The comments were filled with genuine appreciation. This color palette is professional grade. Stunning harmony between natural and structured elements. Need to know who created this. Rumor is it's an older woman's garden? She has more vision than half the young designers out there. For Eleanor, who had felt stripped of her value, this unexpected validation felt like a tiny, persistent ray of sunlight piercing through dark clouds. And then there's this. Bennett swiped excitedly to another image, a sleek digital poster. East Coast Garden Contest. This is. Eleanor leaned closer. It's the most prestigious garden contest in the region. Bennett's eyes sparkled. Mrs. Thorne, you have to enter. The deadline isn't for another 2 weeks. Eleanor instinctively recoiled. Someone like me. The words were barely a whisper. Mrs. Thorne, Bennett said, his expression suddenly serious. Your garden moves people. I feel it, and clearly, many others do too. You have a special talent. Eleanor fell silent, her mind racing. A contest, public exposure. Then a crucial question surfaced. Who sponsors this contest? Bennett scrolled down the sponsor list displayed on the poster. Eleanor's breath caught. Her heart leaped uncomfortably. There, listed as a board member of the sponsoring cultural foundation, was Victoria Blackwood. And representing a major corporate sponsor, Blackwood Properties, was Broderick Blackwood. Maddie's in-laws. The two people who had publicly humiliated her. What's wrong? Bennett asked, noticing the sudden change in her expression. Eleanor quickly composed herself, shaking her head. It's nothing. She took a deep breath, the scent of damp earth filling her lungs. A decision settled within her, quiet but firm. I'll do it. I'll enter. Bennett's face lit up. Really? That's fantastic. But, Eleanor added, her gaze steady and serious, I want it kept secret. Don't use my name. Why not? Bennett looked puzzled. There are reasons. Just enter me as the mystery gardener. Bennett looked curious but nodded readily. Okay, Mrs. Thorne. As the mystery gardener it is. But you'll reveal yourself if you win, right? A small, enigmatic smile played on Eleanor's lips. We'll see when the time comes. From that moment, Eleanor's days took on a new intensity. She was in the garden from dawn till dusk, tending to each plant as if whispering secrets to it. Howard's lessons echoed in her mind as she tilled, planted, and watered. The soil doesn't lie, Howard used to say. It just asks for love and patience. Bennett became a regular fixture, arriving after his classes or on weekends, eager to help. His youthful energy and academic knowledge blended surprisingly well with Eleanor's years of experience and innate sensibility. Mrs. Thorne, this color combination is genius. Not at all. I just listened to how the colors want to speak to each other. Their easy companionship warmed Eleanor's heart. It wasn't just the garden transforming, her own wounded spirit was slowly mending, nurtured by the shared work and Bennett's unwavering belief in her. His enthusiasm reminded her of her own youth. "I was like you once, you know," she confided one afternoon, smiling wistfully. "So in love with the earth and the plants, I couldn't think of anything else." "Then why did you stop gardening for so long?" Bennett asked gently. Eleanor paused, her gaze drifting towards the horizon. "I lost too much. But you know, I realize now, Howard didn't die to take the joy of gardening away from me. He left it for me." Bennett nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Each time I face the soil, I face myself," Eleanor wrote in an old journal she'd unearthed. "Perhaps if I plant my wounded pride, my trampled self-worth deep enough in this earth, they too might bloom someday." One afternoon, Bennett arrived with more news, his phone held out like a trophy. The photos of the mystery gardener's work he'd continued to share had exploded online. The story of an anonymous, extraordinarily talented gardener, whose identity was unknown for personal reasons, was capturing imaginations, growing into a small internet legend. People are guessing who the mystery gardener is. Some think it's a famous landscape designer working incognito, others think it's just an incredibly gifted amateur. Listening to Bennett's report, Eleanor felt a complex mix of emotions, a thrill of recognition mingled with a growing unease. To be judged solely on her work, without her name or history attached, was liberating. It was pure validation. Headlines began appearing on gardening blogs, "The humble gardener creating authentic beauty." "If this truly is the work of an ordinary person," one expert commentator wrote, "it poses a profound question to the established world of professional garden design." Eleanor felt caught in a current she hadn't anticipated. While the attention was gratifying, restoring a confidence she thought long dead, she also felt a rising anxiety about the moment the mystery might finally be solved. With less than a week until the contest, Eleanor's garden had undergone a breathtaking transformation. Vibrant blooms mingled with fragrant herbs, arranged in patterns that seemed both meticulously planned and organically grown. It was more than just a garden, it felt like a tangible expression of her resilient soul. But the transformation came at a cost. Eleanor's body protested the relentless work. Her joints throbbed constantly, and some nights, the pain in her lower back was so intense she could barely straighten up. "You need to rest, Mrs. Thorne," Bennett urged, his brow furrowed with concern as he watched her wince while pruning. "It's all right. Just a little longer," Eleanor replied, managing a smile through the discomfort. She relied on over-the-counter pain relief to keep going, her eyes shining with a renewed determination that overshadowed the physical strain. One afternoon, Bennett burst through her garden gate, practically breathless with excitement. "Mrs. Thorne, look at this." He shoved his smartphone towards her. On the screen were the latest photos of her garden, shared under the hashtag Mystery Gardener and hashtag Miracle Garden. The like count had soared past 100,000. "My follower count isn't huge, so I asked some friends to share it too," and then, an editor from A Gardener's World a magazine saw the post. Bennett rushed through the explanation, his words tumbling out. Eleanor's garden, the mystery gardener's garden, had become a major talking point in horticultural circles. "Everyone is dying to know who the mystery gardener is. You're becoming a genuine internet legend." Eleanor stared at the screen, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. The sudden, intense spotlight was both exhilarating and terrifying. The comment section overflowed with enthusiastic reactions. Hashtag Mystery Gardener is a modern myth. Forget the high society designers, applause for real grassroots talent. This garden has soul. Something money can't buy. Bennett scrolled further, showing Eleanor the latest development. The popular gardening blog Roots and Shoots just published a feature. "Mystery Gardener, the anonymous challenger taking on the elite garden contest. They're all rooting for you." The article hailed the anonymous entrant as embodying the true spirit of gardening, and noted the rare instance where anonymity allows the work to be judged purely on its own merit. Eleanor felt overwhelmed. The simple act of tending her garden, initially a private journey of healing, had somehow blossomed into a narrative captivating countless strangers. But the quiet momentum shifted abruptly that afternoon. A call came through from a number she hadn't seen in weeks. "Mom. Maddie. It's good to hear from you, dear." A knot formed in Eleanor's stomach. "I saw it on social media. That garden, it's yours, isn't it?" Maddie's voice was tentative. Eleanor took a sharp breath. "Yes. Why didn't you tell me? And why anonymously?" Eleanor hesitated, words failing her. Should she tell her the whole truth? The raw humiliation? "Maddie, honey, I didn't want to worry you. But Mom, this contest. Philip's parents are involved." A heavy silence hung between them. "I know," Eleanor replied quietly. "Mom." Maddie's voice trembled, thick with emotion. "I am so sorry about the wedding. For not saying anything. It wasn't your fault, Maddie." "No, it was," Maddie insisted, her voice cracking. "I've been miserable. I was too scared to stand up to them, thinking about Philip's family. But I thought about you every single day." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes, blurring the vibrant colors of her garden. "Philip's dad, his company is in a really difficult spot with that big development project. I was afraid of making waves. But that's just an excuse. The truth is, I just didn't have the courage. Maddie. Mom, I can't stay silent anymore. I'm coming to the contest. And this time, I'll be standing right beside you." A gentle smile touched Eleanor's lips. "Thank you, dear. But please, don't feel obligated. You have your own life to live." "But..." "Maddie, listen," Eleanor said, her voice finding a quiet strength. "I'm doing this for myself now. Not to get back at anyone. Just because my heart tells me I need to." Soft sobbing echoed from the other end of the line. "I'm cheering for you, Mom." After the call ended, Eleanor stood motionless for a long time, letting the complex emotions wash over her, tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks. The next day, the situation escalated further. The local newspaper ran a small piece, "Mystery Gardener's Identity Soon to Be Revealed," accompanied by a slightly blurry photo of Eleanor's garden. It speculated the work belonged to a local elderly woman. But the biggest shock came when Bennett arrived, waving a printout of an online news alert, his face pale. "Mrs. Thorne. They've changed the judging panel for the contest." He showed her the article. Cultural Foundation board member Victoria Blackwood has been added as a last-minute judge. And Broderick Blackwood will be presenting the award as the representative of the main sponsor. Eleanor's face was drained of color. The article says they want to personally ascertain the identity of the much-talked-about mystery gardener, Bennett read aloud, his voice tight. Victoria was quoted, "I look forward to discerning what constitutes genuine talent." Broderick added, "We believe in shining a light not only on professionals but also on gifted members of the community." A final paragraph caught Eleanor's eye, confirming a suspicion. Sources suggest the Blackwoods face challenges beyond the contest. Their controversial new real estate project has reportedly stalled due to conflicts with environmental groups, making an improvement in their public image a pressing concern. Eleanor stared out the window, her gaze distant. "I see." A quiet, unshakable resolve settled in her heart. She wouldn't run. She wouldn't hide. Meanwhile, in the sterile luxury of the Blackwood estate, Victoria paced nervously, speaking to her husband. "This a mystery gardener, doesn't the timing seem curious?" she asked, her voice strained. "Could it possibly be her?" Broderick frowned, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "Don't be ridiculous. That woman. Possessing this level of talent? Highly unlikely." But Maddie has been acting strangely lately, Victoria insisted. Almost protective. As if she knows something. Unseen, unheard, Philip stood just outside the library door, having overheard their exchange. He quietly retreated and dialed Maddie's number. "My parents are getting suspicious about your mom," he warned softly. "Do they know anything?" Maddie paused. "Let's meet tomorrow and talk." On the eve of the contest, Eleanor performed her final touches on the garden. The physical pain was a constant, sharp thrum beneath the surface, but her mind felt remarkably calm, centered. "You'll be there tomorrow, won't you?" she asked Bennett as he helped clear away some tools. "Absolutely. I wouldn't miss seeing you win for the world, Mrs. Thorne," he beamed. Eleanor smiled faintly. "Winning isn't everything, Bennett. But I think I can stand tall with pride, no matter what happens." Later that night, Eleanor sat alone in her garden, the familiar scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine enveloping her. She looked up at the vast, star-dusted sky. "Howard," she whispered to the quiet darkness. "Watch over me tomorrow." The contest day arrived bright and clear. The park was buzzing with anticipation, crowds drawn by the event and whispers of the anonymous entry. Eleanor stood beside her garden display, marked simply, "The Mystery Gardener." Her heart pounded, yet she drew strength from the scent of earth and blooms. Her eyes found Victoria Blackwood among the judges, radiating confidence, and Broderick Blackwood nearby, exuding power. Finally, the judges stopped before Eleanor's garden. A hush fell as they absorbed its beauty. Even Victoria's practiced critique softened into genuine admiration. "Truly remarkable," a senior judge declared. "Masterfully done." Victoria nodded slowly. "Indeed, stunning work. Who is this mystery gardener?" Her gaze lifted and locked onto Eleanor. Recognition struck like lightning. Victoria froze. "You?" The word was a strangled whisper. Eleanor met her stunned gaze evenly. "Mrs. Blackwood. It has been some time." A gasp rippled through nearby onlookers. Victoria's face contorted, shock warring with disbelief. It cannot be. "You," she stammered, losing composure. "Yes. I created this garden," Eleanor stated, her voice quiet but firm, resonating in the charged silence. "Just the simple gardener mother." Crimson flooded Victoria's face as she recalled her insult. She stood speechless, visibly reeling from the public revelation. Just then, the announcer's voice boomed, cutting through the tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, the judges have reached their decision. The grand prize winner of this year's East Coast Garden Contest is the entry titled The Mystery Gardener, submitted by Mrs. Eleanor Thorne." Thunderous, sustained applause erupted. Bennett let out a whoop of joy. Eleanor stood utterly still, tears welling as the weight of the moment settled upon her. "Mrs. Thorne. Congratulations," the head judge beamed, rushing forward. "A truly deserving win. Please, come to the stage. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood are joining us to present the trophy." Victoria gave a jerky nod, eyes fixed rigidly on the ground. Broderick strode towards the stage, his face a thundercloud of disbelief and barely suppressed fury. Knowing murmurs followed the infamous couple as they ascended the steps. On stage, Eleanor faced the sea of faces, the trophy gleaming beside her. She took a steadying breath, acutely aware of Victoria standing stiffly beside her, radiating resentment, and Broderick on the other side, his fists clenching. "Thank you, everyone," Eleanor began, her voice amplified yet warm with dignity. "I am simply the wife of a gardener. My husband, Howard, passed 15 years ago, but his lessons remain rooted deeply within me." The crowd listened intently. "He always taught me, the soil doesn't lie," Eleanor continued softly. "It asks only for our love, our patience, and reflects back the care we give." Her gaze deliberately flickered towards the black woods. Sometimes, people judge others by appearances, by titles. I myself have felt the sting of such judgment. She paused. But I have learned that true value lies not in status, but in what a person loves with their whole heart, what beauty they strive humbly to create. She gestured towards her garden. This garden is the language of my soul, grown from holding fast to pride and love, like roots clutching the earth, even when trampled. A profound wave of applause swelled from the audience. Victoria remained frozen, while Broderick clapped mechanically, his jaw tight. The contrast between Eleanor's grace and their brittle arrogance was starkly apparent. And now, the presentation of the trophy, the announcer declared brightly. Broderick flinched. Caught in the spotlight, he lunged awkwardly for the trophy, his hand visibly shaking as he grasped the heavy base. Victoria took an unsteady step forward. They exchanged a tense glance, then lifted it together, turning stiffly to present it to Eleanor. For one charged second, their eyes locked, Eleanor's clear and steady, Victoria's burning with resentment, Broderick's flickering with shame and rage. "Congratulations," Victoria managed to choke out, the word a barely audible whisper. Eleanor accepted the trophy, her grip firm. She offered a simple, dignified nod. "Thank you." During the excruciating photos, Broderick's smile was a terrifying grimace. He subtly angled himself away from Eleanor, a desperate attempt at distance. The instant the photographer lowered his camera, Broderick muttered a sharp, "Excuse me," spun on his heel, and practically bolted from the stage, yanking a handkerchief to swipe at his sweating brow as he shouldered his way through the onlookers, escaping the pointing fingers and whispers. Victoria, after a moment of paralyzed indecision, followed his swift retreat, her head held high but her escape just as hurried. Their diminished figures disappeared into the crowd. "Mom!" A choked cry pierced the lingering buzz. Eleanor turned. Maddie rushed towards her, face streaked with tears. "Mom, oh, Mom, you were incredible. Breathtakingly strong." She crashed into Eleanor's arms, clinging tightly. "I am so sorry, for the wedding, for being so weak, so cowardly. I failed you." "Shh, my dear, my brave girl, it's all right now," Eleanor murmured, holding her daughter close. "No, Mom," Maddie sobbed, pulling back slightly, eyes fierce with pride and regret. "All my life, I've admired your strength, your resilience. I was so proud to be your daughter, but I never found the courage to say it. I let fear silence me. I'm so ashamed." Eleanor gently wiped her daughter's tears. "We make mistakes, Maddie. We learn, we grow. You are here now. That is everything." She held her daughter tightly again, feeling years of distance dissolve in the embrace. Philip appeared quietly beside them, his face etched with remorse. He approached Eleanor hesitantly and bowed his head slightly. "Mrs. Thorne." "Eleanor, congratulations. You were truly inspiring. And, for my parents' deplorable behavior, I am deeply, profoundly sorry." Eleanor looked at him, her gaze kind but searching. "Thank you, Philip. Apologies are a start. Actions, consistent actions showing respect, are what truly rebuild trust." That evening, bathed in the soft glow of dusk, Eleanor sat peacefully in her garden, the trophy on the table beside her. Bennett, Maddie, and Philip shared a simple supper, the day's turmoil replaced by quiet warmth. "So, what's next for the celebrated Mrs. Thorne?" Bennett asked, eyes sparkling. Eleanor smiled, gazing at her sanctuary. "Keep tending this garden. Nurture it. Perhaps share what I know with others." Maddie reached across, covering her mother's hand. "Mom, I meant what I said. I want to come back home more often. To help. To learn. To just be with you." She glanced at Philip, who nodded with quiet determination. "Seeing you today, I need to choose my own life. Tears of quiet joy welled in Eleanor's eyes. My door, my heart, is always open to you, my darlings. In the following weeks, a gentle rhythm established itself. Maddie and Philip became regular weekend visitors, their presence a balm. Philip awkwardly learned about gardening, mending bridges with every turned spadeful. Bennett remained her enthusiastic helper, assisting with the small workshops she'd started, which quickly gained popularity. One golden autumn afternoon, Eleanor sat watching the sunset, the contented sounds of Bennett preparing for the next class drifting from the house. "Howard," she murmured softly, feeling his presence. "Are you watching? Our garden, it's reaching so many hearts." A soft wind whispered through the leaves. She rose and walked among the fading blooms, touching a velvety rose petal. "We are not defined by the harsh words or judgments of others," she whispered to the twilight, a deep peace settling within her. Even when trampled, those who hold fast to love, to dignity, to the quiet truth rooted deep within their souls, they are the ones who ultimately find their way back to the sun and blossom with breathtaking strength. The flowers in her triumphant garden seemed to nod in the gathering dusk, sharing her quiet, hard-won pride. If you enjoyed this story, please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it with your friends and family. Stay tuned for our next touching story. Check out the new videos appearing on your screen now for more great entertainment. See you in the next video.